Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C-Dot that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. In this part of my favorite 80s movies, we take a look at 1987. This was the year that gave us many classic sci-fi films, from the action-packed RoboCop to the suspenseful and quotable Predator. All of these movies and more will be shared on the third list of my favorite 80s flicks. So let's dive in, shall we? Number 80. Masters of the Universe. Another movie I've talked about before, but it is still worth talking about for how goofy and fun this movie is. While it might not be the movie that He-Man fans wanted, I do think that there are good things in this movie that keep it from being forgotten entirely, such as the cast. I know that everyone agrees that Frank Langella as Skeletor is one of the greatest performances of all time, but the other actors are just as good, and the action is very reminiscent of the cartoon. But I do agree that this movie should have been closer to the cartoon and had it take place on Eternia. Though with the announcement of a new live-action He-Man movie, things might be looking up for us. Oh, fuck! Number 79. Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. Speaking of Filmation and things I've already reviewed, this is one of the few Pinocchio movies that I genuinely like for being creative. A sequel to the original fairy tale, the movie has a wonderful cast, a lot of catchy songs, and a mix of creepy yet colorful animation. I've come to love the Filmation art style for how beautiful it looks despite how simple some of the character models look. But the creators of this movie I felt were able to break away from that trope for the most part, at least when it came to the villains, with the Emperor and Puppetino not looking like they could have been toys first. I will admit that the middle is a bit tedious, but if you're willing to put up with some slower pacing, I highly recommend this movie for how creative it is. Which is something that the garbage Disney live-action remake chose to ignore. Number 78. Batteries Not Included. Finally! A movie I can talk about that I haven't reviewed, and it's one that had the involvement of Brad Bird. The movie follows a group of people in an apartment building that a businessman is trying to tear down, but the family comes across alien robots that stay with them and help them out with daily tasks and keeping out the hired muscle of the evil businessman. One of the writers of this movie was Brad Bird, and while there were several other writers on this movie, I feel like there were a lot of Brad Birdisms that made it into the movie that, when I first saw this, I did mistake it for one he directed. But regardless, I do love the movie for being a cute alien movie that has a lot of great moments with the robots, and I do love the cast in this movie as they are each quirky in their own way. I can't really think of anything else to say about this movie other than it's cute, fun, and worth watching for that Brad Bird writing style. Number 77. The Monster Squad. With the popularity of movies like The Goonies and Stand By Me, it was only a matter of time before we got a movie where 80s kids fought the Universal Monsters. In old Transylvania, Abraham Van Helsing tries to banish Dracula and the other popular Universal monsters into limbo, but fails in the attempt. Then in 1980s America, Dracula attempts to find a way to make sure that the monsters stay in the modern world, but must deal with horror movie fans who have Van Helsing's diary and plan to finish what he started. I feel like this movie was able to do what modern attempts at remaking the Universal monsters have been practically impossible for most writers, making likable characters and having the monsters actually threatening. The Dracula in this movie is one that I love for having the charm and charisma of the old actors, but is intimidating with his mere presence. Watching him walk through a bunch of cops to get to a child and lift her up like a glass of wine, saying one of the many quotable lines, "Give me the amulet, you bitch," is just so satisfying and makes for a great villain. Honestly, the whole cast is filled with charm, with the kids being the most entertaining, having one-liners and cursing like sailors. This is a great example of a kid's monster movie that I watch all the time when I need a good pick-me-up. Number 76. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Speaking of pick-me-ups, here we have what I consider to be the best John Candy and John Hughes movie of all time. Steve Martin plays a tired businessman who is trying to get home for the Thanksgiving holiday, but is constantly inconvenienced and has to take many other modes of transport to get home. All the while, he travels with a man played by John Candy, who, at first, is a pain in the ass that seems to be ruining his chances of getting home, but soon learns to respect and even considers him a friend. The movie, again, has a charm with the relationship between Steve and John, who do start to get on each other's nerves, but soon learn to cope with their situation. Which is funnier the more you watch it, as you get to learn all of the ways that Steve could have gotten home, but is stuck along for the ride with John. I will say that when it comes to John Candy, this is his best performance and is the one I associate with him as a person. A guy who screws things up, but he has a kind and helpful heart. The only thing I wish was changed from the movie was the original ending, because it really adds to the emotional moments in the movie. But the ending we do have is still good regardless. Number 75. RoboCop. One of the first R-rated sci-fi action movies I ever saw as a kid, this movie is one that still holds up as a great action flick, as well as a satirical look at 80s commercialism. A police officer who was killed in action becomes the product of a new company, an android meant to help law enforcement called RoboCop. Most of the movie is a fun gore fest with RoboCop running around taking down different criminals, leading to him facing the ones that killed him and the one who they work under. Which is one of the things I like, but I do love the more fun side of the movie where they mock a lot of the product placements and commercialism of the 1980s, which was a newer thing at the time and felt more real, unlike in today's film society where nostalgia is the money ticket. The last thing I'll mention is that while most people focus on the great effects, yes, even that one green screen moment, I also like the story of this movie about a man who was trying to regain his humanity after it was stolen from him. Though I do wish that they did focus a little bit more on RoboCop's human life rather than just glance it over with flashbacks and quickly mentioning his son and wife to his partner. But that's just me. Number 74. Predator. Nothing like a good old movie about a bunch of buff guys in the jungle getting killed by an alien voiced by Optimus Prime. A group of soldiers head to the jungle under the pretense that they're rescuing hostages from terrorists, only to be attacked by an alien with superior weapons as he picks them off one by one. While the original movie is one that is a very macho action flick, I do love it for seeing how Arnold Schwarzenegger and the other soldiers face off against the Predator, whether it be by using brute force or trying to outsmart it with their own methods, and that is what keeps me coming back. The different ways these soldiers take on the Predator, as well as seeing those hilarious sitcom-style end credits. Number 73. The Lost Boys. One of the many good examples of Joel Schumacher as a good director, and shows he should be remembered more for his good movies, rather than the two movies people tend to constantly reference. The Emerson family, consisting of two brothers and their recently divorced mom, moved to the small town of Santa Carla, California, where the older of the two boys becomes involved with a group of rebellious kids who are actually vampires and want to make him one of their own. I remember this movie as one that was popular with girls because of Kiefer Sutherland, who was a heartthrob actor at the time. But aside from that, the movie is one that has some great comedy and amazing music, which is not surprising given that it was done by Thomas Newman, who did the music for The Great Outdoors and The Shawshank Redemption. I wouldn't say that this is my favorite vampire movie of all time, but it is one I come back to for the amazing cast and great vampiric moments. Number 72. Spaceballs. One of the greatest parodies of all time, made by the king of the parody movie genre, Mel Brooks.
It's good to be the king.
While the movie's story is a parody of the original Star Wars movies, as well as making fun of the merchandising that came from it, the movie does mock other sci-fi movies and series, such as Planet of the Apes, Transformers, and even Star Trek. What makes this movie so good is the writing and the charming cast. Mel Brooks has always been able to make movies that are both hilarious and charming, with each of the cast members giving it their all to make these performances memorable. If you haven't seen this movie yet, you owe it to yourself to check out this classic comedy. Number 71. The Princess Bride. One of my all-time favorite fairy tale movies that deserves to be at the number 1 spot on this list. The story of a grandfather telling his sick grandson a fairy tale with swords, monsters, true love, and many more classic themes from this genre. I think what I love about this movie is that while the story that the grandfather tells is the best and main part of the movie, are the scenes with the grandfather and grandson, cause I love how real those scenes feel. I feel like many of us who've been sick at a young age and have had a grandparent or even parents take care of us, they do read stories to help us get over being sick. And this movie captures those emotions, as well as give us a great fantasy story that is still timeless and is a great gateway movie into the fantasy genre. Which is sad to learn about the tragic death of the director, Rob Reiner, who created many great films, not just this movie, but others including Misery and Stand By Me. Rest in peace, Rob. You will be missed. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Waluigi. And remember, don't judge a book by its cover, cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.
Tell me, doctor, where